IVM.
Being a creator opens up a world of possibilities for you. Creators of popular content are in prime position to expand their horizons and build something that may outlast them. Some great examples come to mind. Miss Malini was one of the first on the scene who turned a personal brand into a successful media company. TVF and Filter Copy are leading the charge today, while more creators are turning entrepreneurs as this opportunity grows. Today, I sit down with two young creators who've turned entrepreneurs. Creatorpreneurs, if you will. Akash Shah, ex-head of social media at AIB, now runs a creative shop called One Hand Clap, infamous for their Swiggy Instagram music stories. And Ranveer Allabadia, or Beer Biceps, who now runs a company called Monk Entertainment. I asked Ranveer and Akash about how their journey from creator to entrepreneur is going, what their visions for the companies are, and what challenges they face in navigating this environment. Tune in to my conversation with Akash and Ranveer on storytellers and story sellers right after these messages.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. In the life cycle of a digital creator, the time to turn entrepreneur is an important moment to understand where this business can go with them. Today in the studio, we have Akash Shah and Ranveer Allabadia, two young men who started as creators and now have taken on a second innings in their careers as entrepreneurs and people who run creative companies. Ranveer?
What's up?
People might also know Ranveer as Beer Biceps.
Yes.
Yeah. And Akash, how are you doing?
Hello, what's up? This is my first podcast.
I mean, good to have you here, and I'm glad this is your debut. That's a very nice. I'm personally very fond of the kind of work that both of you have done. I've followed Akash since he was running social media at AIB, and we've met a few times before, and we did that thing at Marico.
The very intense
panel. Yeah, so good to have you guys here. I'm very excited about our chat, especially because both of you represent such a dynamic part of our industry right now, right? There's just so much happening, and it's great to see young men making sense of it and taking it by the collar and taking it forward, right? So let me dive right into it, guys, and I want to ask you something that I don't know if I've done it for myself, but it's something that I hear a lot, right? It's about finding your passion. Everyone's like, everyone else is getting a job. I want to find my passion and I want to turn that into what I want to do. It's something that gets repeated very, very often as a millennial mantra, so to speak, right? But it often doesn't happen to everyone. And I'm glad to see that two guys to whom it has happened. How did it happen? For you, Ranveer, how did it start out, finding your Beer Biceps passion and then with Monk Entertainment? How did you start out?
Started out in engineering college. Somehow I discovered fitness back then. Got certified as a professional trainer. And right after college, I figured I didn't want to do one of the standard things of like taking a job, doing an MBA, doing an MS. So I thought, why not try a startup? So I tried launching a fitness-based startup. It was supposed to be an Uber for trainers. So you sit at home and you call a trainer home for a workout. That was the idea. We designed an app, everything. And we went to a potential investor who said that there's a lot of fitness startups coming up. So you all need to stand out. So to market yourselves, try social media. And I'd watched a lot of fitness YouTube growing up in engineering college.
Like what kind of stuff?
A lot of these American channels, Canadian channels, British channels about just guys teaching other guys how to be fitter. Bodybuilding mainly. Because that time,
the right posture, the right form and stuff
all
like
that. And if you opened my YouTube back then, it was just like a series of like fitness guys. And I always asked myself back then that why isn't anyone doing this for India, for Indians? So, I mean, at that moment, I figured that, this is a good marketing strategy for the app. I'll grow it till about 2,000 subscribers and then stop. And once I started doing it, it grew really fast. And then I also figured that there's something called Google AdSense, which is their way of paying you for your views.
Right.
And that's when I realized that, you can make money off this. And eventually, because I saw how scalable it was, I figured that, this is a much more easier startup model than running an Uber for trainers where there's so many loopholes. So also at that point, I was training people. I was actually going to people's houses and training them for money, because being a fitness coach in Mumbai pays you heavily. Like I was earning more in, in that 1 year than anyone else who graduated with me in engineering college just by training people. That's why I met someone called Tanmay Bhatt from AIB.
Right.
And I'd helped him lose weight back then. And in return, he mentored me through that first phase where he explained how scalable this world can be. And that's when I figured that, wait, this is what I really need to lock in on.
That's fantastic. That's exactly exactly the kind of story that makes you wonder if your startup and the marketing for your startup are competing for your attention, which is actually the better startup. And that's clearly, building scale was something that really did bear biceps a lot of headwind at the beginning.
Yeah. And also doing YouTube, I figured that, hold on, I'm not just passionate about fitness, I'm passionate about video creation in general, like filmmaking. Filmmaking was something I toyed with as a teenager, and I got to rediscover that in my so-called marketing wing of my startup. And I figured I wanted to take it ahead because I was really into filmmaking by then. And it just made sense, and you could make a lot of money off it. So
that's fantastic. Man. How about you, Akash? I mean, I'm sure your story is slightly different. I'm sure Tanmay had a role to play there as well. But
kya batao? I mean, I think it was I was doing typical, like, come from middle class background. I was a bright student in school, scored 92%, topped my school, got in the best college, HR college. Did not fit in very well because I think I came from a very small school per se, and like just entering a new term, like my perspective of the world changed when I went to HR. Started doing my CA because I think that is the one thing that HR college teaches, is that if you are here, the CA is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah. Does being Gujarati have anything to do with that as well?
I think CA is one of the cheapest courses available. Guarantees you a job. So by the end of it,
it's also one of the toughest to actually get through in terms of like percentage rates that go through at the end.
Yeah, that's there. But I think now, in retrospect, my feelings and my thoughts about that has changed now. So yeah, I cracked CPT, got good marks in CPT. I think by the end of CPT, I felt, CA is the thing for me. I'll just be able to crack it. Then I started appearing for IPCC, and that is when internet happened to me. And I think that is when I flunked IPCC 3 times in a row.
And this was when, like 2012, 13?
2014.
14.
Yeah, 2014, 15. I flunked 3 times, all thanks to the internet. That is when my perspective about the value that you provide to society started changing. When you prepare for CA, that is what you're doing, right? You're building value for yourself, and then in certain amount of period, you'll start giving that value back to society and earn money off it.
Right.
I think that big epiphany moment changed for me, because I felt as humans, we have multivariate, we can provide value to society in so many different ways. And I think when internet started happening, I think one big break, I would run meme pages on the internet, keep doing Kandi on the internet, do stuff like troll. That is how I started out. I would troll AIB, I would troll BuzzFeed India, I would troll, the being on the top comments of all these popular pages was a thing. Back then, this was a cool quotient, that if you're there, you're being recognized by people.
Yeah.
Slowly and steadily, I think I started one of the pages. I don't know if you now remember, because it's been 3 years old. The unofficial Bombay High Court.
Yeah, we remember that page.
I started that. Hit 500,000 subscribers on it, and
it's a big number, right, when you think about it.
And but that was not the winning moment. I think the winning moment happened. There were 2 winning moments, because I think one was my work started getting recognized everywhere. This guy, he does this, and everything about what I've done previously just came to light. That he can create content. That is when Tanmay Bhatt got in touch. The next big thing that happened because of the pages, which I think is the biggest win. The win wasn't the getting 5 lakh subscribers on the page. The win was, I think, the actual Bombay High Court shutting the page. That was a big win. That you challenged
money can't buy
someone in power. I think that is why I think the page got to be known as that. That actual Bombay High Court came after this page and shut it down. Had they not done it, I don't think it would have been that powerful.
But let me ask you this about that moment, because I can think back to 2016, 2017 when this must have happened. the internet was still not a, viable career alternative. Abhi bhi hua nahi tha. I think 2018, 2019, we're pretty sorted if someone wants to be a YouTuber, right?
Or an influencer.
Or an influencer. Oh my God. That word. But I mean, we take it seriously. We're like, cool. If you are, if you're a talented guy, you're dedicated enough, you'll do it. But that's the conventional sort of path. But for you, when Bombay High Court and unofficial Bombay High Court shut down, at that moment, what was your mind like, right? Ki main kya kar raha hu, kahan ja raha hu? I mean, were there any questions like that?
Oh, in the moment, I think I was just scared. Also, because I was very naive back then. I just felt I just didn't want to go to jail.
Don't we all?
Yeah, and I go to Tanmay. I told him about this, whatever is happening, and instead of just telling me that Akash, you won't go to jail, he's just giving me some sort of solution. Ki, okay, do this, and then nothing would happen. And I think in the moment I was scared. Like, am I actually going to jail? Now in retrospect, I feel, what a fool I was. Like today, if something like this would to happen, it would just be one phone call away. Okay, this is happening. Okay, great, and then it's just sorted out.
Yeah, you get better with experience. But it's important that we talked about it, and it's great that you brought up these moments because that's what I want to ask you guys. Because starting out, like you said, as a fitness trainer or someone who is creating content for the internet, the long-term viability of something like this is still, you got to have those moments which light up and keep your faith alive and say, hey, I'm good at this, and if not today, 6 months, if not 6 months, a year. And then there's that entire ecosystem, मतलब 18 से 20-22 साल का लड़का है घर में, नौकरी नहीं करता है, those things. Parents are sometimes confused about what it is. I mean, like, I've been working 10 years and sometimes I'm not sure my mom knows what I do, right? Like on a phone call, she'll be like, one day I'll understand. So I can only imagine it being really tough between when you were starting out. How did you guys manage with that pressure? What were moments that kept the faith alive?
So initially, I didn't tell my parents I was doing YouTube. I told them that I'm still doing the fitness.
How did they find out?
I mean, they've discovered the videos. One of their friends sent them the videos.
Hey, ye to dekha.
Yeah, pretty much. That was what happened. And they didn't get it for a while. I just told them, give me 2 years of doing this, and after 2 years the money will flow in. And that's something I learned again from Tanmay. He's coming up a lot in this conversation. So he was giving me some of his numbers, like how much he earned from a brand deal he did on his Snapchat or Instagram. And that time I think he was one of the top Instagrammers in the country, and he was getting 2,000, 3,000 likes. Wow. So compare that to the scenario now.
Yeah, where like it's 1 million likes on Disha Parani every picture.
Yeah. So that's how different Instagram was back then, and he was still earning in lakhs like then. So I was like, hold on, this is like an actual career, and that's what kept me like locked in on the game. Probably just having the right mentors, right people around you, man. And again, through Tanmay, I met like the whole AIB crew. I met everyone, in the scene. I figured that wait, there's a lot of work here for everybody.
Right. So what was your first deal like? Like, what was that experience like? First time brand
deal. So the first brand deal was actually this because I was only a fitness guy back then. We got one of India's top like protein shake people, and they tried to like kind of fleece me a little bit. They told me that no, we're not going to pay you beyond a certain amount, but let's do like one tester video first. And I did a great video for them which crossed a lot of views.
Right.
Didn't make any money off it. Second time they didn't agree to pay me, so they kind of fleeced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like the first brand deal. The first one I got paid for was basically, okay, I'll give you, can I go a little long on this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so basically when I was training Tanmay, after a point, I think we crossed about 40,000, 50,000 subs. And I figured I wanted to focus on YouTube and not do fitness coaching, because fitness coaching wasn't as scalable as YouTube was.
That's your like first pivot.
Yeah. So because I was Tanmay's trainer and his whole weight loss and all was really out there on the internet, everyone thought that, this guy's a good trainer. So I was getting a lot of training offers, making a lot of money. But I decided to take that like drop in salary and just focus on YouTube, because I knew that long term, this is where it's at.
That's a brave call.
Yeah, good call back then.
Yeah.
I was a little afraid to do it back then, but good we did it. When I was about to stop training him, so he had introduced me to a lot of the OML people, and at OML I'd always like kind of inquired if they would manage me. Now for whatever reason, I think they wanted to focus a lot more on comics.
Right.
So they'd always like tell me that, okay, maybe after you cross 10k, after you cross 50k, after you cross 100k. So that kept happening. And eventually...
Akash is smiling.
eventually I figured that hold on, rather than depending on, someone else, why not do it myself? I tried doing a few brand deals myself, and then I realized, the whole brand world is a little bit intense, and I want to be a creator. I just want to be creating videos. So I went back to my engineering college, which is the Dwarkadas J. Sangvi College of Engineering.
Wow.
Full of good juice.
Wow. Can you say that again?
Dwarkadas J. Sangvi College of Engineering. DJ Sangvi.
Right.
I went back there, and I went to like the smartest junior I knew, who's this guy called Virat Sheth. And I told him that, bro, I need someone to handle my whole back end. I just want to stick to creating videos. And he had that hustler mentality. He was up for it. So he basically started randomly cold calling people, cold emailing people, if that's what you call it. That's what you call it? Cold emails.
Cold emails, yeah.
So just started dropping a lot of emails here and there, made a fool of himself in a bunch of meetings. And then we just learned it ourselves. Eventually we got in touch with this energy drink brand. And they paid me 7,000 rupees for one Instagram post.
Boni ho gayi.
Yeah, and that was like the first
beautiful
little bit of money that we earned, but it was such an
the sweetest 7,000 you earned.
Iconic moment for us. So that was where it started, and eventually things just started snowballing. Fortunately, I switched into grooming and fashion content at that point, which is where the brand money is at in this country.
Right.
And then things just really like exponentially started growing.
I think lifestyle is the most sort of efficient space in terms of creators being able to monetize.
Maybe not anymore. It is, but see, that's another whole conversation. It's very saturated. That market. There's a lot of people putting out a lot of lifestyle content, and what's happening is that a lot of lifestyle clothing brands aren't really savvy on social media, so they go to the wrong influencers.
Right.
They are ready to settle for cheap. They'll go for an influencer who gets even 500 likes, but they will go to him rather than coming to someone who gets 70k, 80k likes, just because the 70k, 80k is more expensive.
Right.
But 70, 80k organic followers is way more powerful than 500 possibly bought followers.
Sure.
So that's what's happening in the lifestyle space right now. And right now, the brand scenario is that all kinds of brands are on social media. Yeah. And we've just started to see that in the last 3-4 months. We did this study on our numbers, and the brand money, especially for Beer Biceps and Ranveer Alabadia, is coming from everywhere. Right. All kinds of brands. So it's not just limited to fashion and all that right now. It was for the last 2-3 years. That's where the big money was coming from. Yeah. But now it's all over the place, dude. Every kind of brand, including insurance brands, hotel brands, cars. Anything you can think of is on social media.
And I think it's just a sign of the times. It's a way of the market acknowledging that creators and influencers are a legitimate part of marketing mix, right?
Also, one more story about Virat Sheth. So basically, because he did such a good job, I think back then, again, just generally the YouTube domain was very disorganized, especially the back end. No one was helping any of the YouTubers with their brand deals.
Right.
Probably few people who had back end management. A lot of my bros from the YouTube community, the fitness, fashion guys, they needed help. So we all got together and we kind of figured that let's start some kind of a company. And that's what led to starting Monk Entertainment, which is what we run today, which is an entire media agency. Now we do a lot of things, but it started off basically with helping influencers make a little more money.
Yeah, and I want to talk at length about Monk, but let me bring Akash into this. Yeah. What I loved about Ranveer's story here was at one point he realized, hey, there's opportunity here, there's talent, but I don't have all the skill set. Right, he brought someone in and built a team. I know you got incubated within the AIB team as social, and now you're running One Hand Clap. How did that transition really happen for you?
I think we started building the AIB social media team 3 months after I joined. I joined as someone creative who would probably go on to write or manage social media. Since social media, I already had some hands-on experience on it, came very easy to me, and my natural inclination was that. Very naturally, I just took up the AIB social media mandate, started building team from scratch along with Tanmay, and slowly and steadily, 6 months into it, we just I think we had around 6 people on board. Today, I think at One Hand Club, I think we now have a team of 13 people. All 6 of them, the ones who consisted of the AIB social media, they are all still a part of the team at One Hand Club. There's a lot of ease of business that comes in when you work with people for over a period of 3 years.
Right.
There's so much clutter and chaos that you cut through, and you just directly land at the idea, okay, this is what you have to do. And everybody in their own domain, they'll just carry it forward. The ideas get executed so quickly. And that is, I think, one of the best part about One Hand Clap is people have just worked together for way too long and are just in sync, and they vibe with each other in a way that nobody else would.
So I remember, I always remember being a fan of your work on the page. And we must have met about a year and a half ago when we were trying to figure out how we could get you involved with on the TVF side of things, etc. And you were still trying to figure where your mind was at. I think you were talking about taking up something in Bangalore. It was a very exciting project that you wanted to do there, and a bunch of other things. I think One Hand Clap hadn't been born at that point I think when we were having that conversation.
Yeah, not at all.
So can you talk us through? And I'm only double clicking on this because you said something very, very important, which is having a core of people that you know know their output, know their capabilities, know their behaviors, etc. is very important, right? Especially when you're trying to, look at new opportunities coming on. So in that moment and from there on to founding One Hand Clap, can you talk us through that?
I think after the events of the October last year, and the entire AIB shutdown that happened, what that led us to, basically it threw me into an whole sea of, like an ocean of opportunities. Okay, now just go swim. And of course, with the capabilities back then, I was still struggling to swim because I think all the opportunities were hitting from right, left, center. Everybody wanted us in. Also a big epiphany moment for me that the amount of value that you can create now, it's not just restricted to creating content for social media. It's a whole new other marketing game and what I also learned is that the current skill sets can be applied to so many businesses in so many different ways. The entire game has changed, and while we did this micro things so great, what that led to us becoming was that we became also very great at doing macro things really right. So I think when you get the micro right, the macro becomes
kind of falls into place.
Then it's you strategize upwards and then look at the big picture, apply it to a business and change things for them. So I think that so for 4 months after that, we were basically unemployed, not taken up anything,
right.
And mostly out of choice because all the offers that came with good money, etc. But mostly out of choice, everybody just stuck together, figuring out what we'd do. We'd take up some freelance projects on the side and mostly just watch a lot of Shark Tank and The Office. And 4 months into it, I moved in with Tanmay, but now we live in the same house. And I think a lot of iterations here, back and forth here. And that is when we thought, maybe I think we should just start with taking up one brand and let's do marketing for them.
Right.
So the first brand came on board. We started working with them. And probably a week's time, we started thinking of a name for the company, that we need to form a company now. So then again, I went back to the core team, Nikhil, then Masi, Manoj, Aditya, Gladwin, and everybody else. So, and then just it happened.
There was a moment where it just happened.
Yeah,
bro. Imagine what your mindset was in college, where you didn't know what you're gonna do after CA and all that. Like I went through the same thing in engineering college. I was like, "Kya karunga life mein?" And then social media just happened to a whole generation, dude. That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, hard relate to it happening because the circumstances kind of fit very, very well. And now, I mean, if I'm correct in pointing this out, One Hand Clap is no longer an incubated company with OML. You're an independent entity.
Yeah, the initial first few months, we were managed by OML because that is, I think, what we felt is the right fit. But I think there is a little bit of OML excels at managing artists, while we are not artists out and out. However, in essence, OML would still manage us as artists. But as we got more people on board and the company started happening, OML and both of us mutually agreed upon to part ways, since OML would want to stick to live shows,
right,
artist management, and while this
it's
doesn't come under their core competency.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were building a business of our own, so it was best to part ways. But of course, we still happen to work together on certain things.
Right. I mean, it's always great to be associated with a company that's known for some good work in the
It's
space,
never a
right?
zero-sum game. I think if
Right.
I bring in a X amount of opportunities, it benefits everybody else in the ecosystem.
Correct. I mean, that sort of collaboration is what is, I think, a very welcome change over the past couple of years. Ranveer talked about it as well, where he banded together all the fitness bros at that time and started sharing know-how. I think it's very important to have this here. With that, we'll take a short break on storytellers and story sellers. After we come back, we'll talk more about Monk Entertainment and One Hand Clap with Ranveer and Akash.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also want to remind you, please do fill out our listener survey. This is a really, really important thing for us right now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. We ask you a few questions about who you are, what kind of podcast you like listening to, what do you think of things going on so far. So please do fill that out. It would help us. Also would like to thank our sponsors on the network this week. We have Intel, Cambly, and Storytel. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam is joined by Anup Vijay Kumar, a SEBI-registered investment advisor. He talks about the Warren Buffett investing strategy and stock markets. On The Seen and the Unseen, Amit is joined by author and columnist Sujata Anandan. She talks about the ups and downs of Maharashtra politics over the last 5 decades. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by business head of Gully Gang Entertainment Chaitanya Kataria. They discuss the rise of new age music. On Litnama, Lakshmi is in conversation with poet Jasmine Khurana. They discuss the trend of slam poetry. On Geek Fruit, Jishnu is joined by Siddhant Mehta and they do a roundup of the greatest hits and myths of 2019. On Simplified, Chuck and Shriketh simplify the impeachment process in the US and discuss the chances of Trump getting impeached. It's a crossover episode on the Empowering series. As Zarina is joined by Utsav Memoria, host of Postcards from Nowhere. They talk about slow traveling, places to visit in India and abroad, and how to travel on a tight budget. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav tells you how to travel safely to offbeat places with controversial histories and politics. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Ladies and gentlemen, back to this episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers with Ranveer and Akash. Guys, thank you for sharing the sort of origin stories for the companies that you now run, Monk Entertainment for Ranveer and One Hand Clap for Akash. What I'm really, really keen on knowing in this part of the episode is that, when you start doing something creative, and this is a conversation that's always at the heart of creative businesses, is that when you start doing something creative for work, where do you start sort of compromising, where you're like, hey, this is what I built, but now I'm doing this for money. So how do you decide what is it that you will do in the business that you're doing, and where is it that you'll draw the line and say, hey, this is not part of what I do anymore, or this is not part of the business vision that I have for myself. For example, I'm sure you won't do just something that's just fitness anymore, right? Where do you draw the line as businesses? Where do you start drawing the line, and how do you enforce that line?
Dude, I think the main key is selecting the right partner. Yeah. So if someone can fill up your weaknesses really well, like fill up for your weaknesses really well, that's what will make your life like way easier. Also, I think at that phase when you're just starting out Monk Entertainment, I'd figured that I have to have at least 2 years of my life where I take on more work for the rest of my life. Like right. 2 years will pay off. And I think right now we've hit that 2-year mark. So I'm actually moving out of my Monk Entertainment office back to my own beer bicep space, right, where I can once again just focus on making YouTube videos. But the last 2 years have been really intense in terms of workload, which is fine. And on a personal level, I've fixed like my lifestyle. Like I don't drink anymore. There's no intoxicant at all. There's like a very clean lifestyle that allows me to and there's a lot of meditation, yoga. Right. Gives me a lot of stamina. That's the only way I've been able to do it. I've also lost out on like relationships and things like that. So that's the downside of this whole world.
Cost of success.
Yeah. But I think 2 years for the rest of your life isn't that bad a bet.
Yeah. How about you?
In terms of what I lost or like what I gained?
Both.
Oh, in terms of what I lost, I think right before starting One Hand Clap, I was also going through a breakup for there's some breakups that take a while to break up. They are they're always
the messy ones.
Yeah, they are like for a very long time they are breaking up and then there's a final breakup. Yeah. So I think also, but I had a 1 year long relationship and this was bound to happen. But I think right before starting One Hand Clap.
So a little bit of like art coming out of Dard there.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah.
Okay. Dude, I think that's a myth, that maybe applies to singers. It doesn't apply to most creative people. Like you need your emotions in place.
You do, right? You do. I mean, I sometimes wonder if it's true, right? Because when I've been fortunate not to have suffered a lot of breakups in life, but when I was going through a breakup, I was good for nothing. I'm good for nothing. Like for 3 months, forget that I exist.
Bro, and even entrepreneurship is a creative job.
It really is.
So it affects you there as well.
Yeah.
But go on.
Sorry, please,
So, okay, what was the question again?
Why did you break up? Sorry. The question was, as you evolve from creator to entrepreneur, sometimes you lose things, sometimes you decide not to do these things anymore. Sometimes you try and figure what's good for business versus what's selling out. So, in that decision-making matrix,
I think,
what did you decide?
Your core focus, like you become so focused because you're trying to solve this problem for everyone. What happens, I think, there's a tribal strength at play, because then you just vibe with your tribe and they become your friends, they become your family, and you know, like you're going to be spending considerable amount of time with them. So of course I think the blood relation, of course, like because you've spent 20 years of your life with your family, but like now today, because you're providing so much value and adding so much value to each other's lives, the people you work with also, like, it's not typical work. There's a lot of figuring out that's going to happen as you start up. There's a lot of setbacks you're going to be facing, so the ups and downs that you're going to be facing each other. You need each other's back, so you tend to, and that is how I think it is, you tend to invest more of your lifetime and everything to these people around you. In that process, you happen to lose out on the relationships that stop adding any value to your life. And a lot of friends you lose out on. There are friends who would probably become jealous of you. There are friends who would make you feel guilty of not giving them enough time, etc., etc. To each its own. They have their own merits and dismerits, like on like why things are the way they are. Of course, you're going to lose out on a lot of relationships, but that's the way how life is.
I feel like, you have so much energy in your mid-20s that if you have this vision for your career, you're okay with like sacrificing other stuff and just focusing on your career.
I mean, youth doesn't hit you twice, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if you have a plan, and going back to one of my earlier questions, if you're one of the lucky few who does find what their passion really is, and then has the ability to realize it into sort of, maybe not a clear vision, but at least something that looks like a vision, it's only fair to chase it, and only fair to yourself to chase it. And I mean, I'm sure relationships or opportunities or drinking with buddies or whatever else, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a fair value for those sacrifices. What I want to ask you next, and I'll start with Akash this time, because he's built my sense is you've built two separate types of teams, right? One would be a sort of pure creative sort of a team. Whereas now I think you'd be much more involved in building a business and a team that runs a business, right? Fundamental differences in how both would operate, in the kind of skill sets you'd look at. So what is it that you look at, right? And how is it different from what you'd look at, say, when you're running a social media team versus now that you're running an entire business?
I think just the amount of responsibilities is drastically increased. Like, you're just thrown into... Like, when you start out, you don't realize the problems that are going to come your way. They only come once you start out. And then I think the most beautiful things is nobody can tell you, like, what are the right things and the wrong things. Like, nobody can guide you because they haven't figured it out themselves, because everybody's in the process of figuring it out. I think that is the most beautiful things about starting up. To each its own, they deal with very unique set of problems, and there are unique set of solutions. There is no one pathway to moving ahead.
Sure, but what I'm trying to get at is, personally, what is your approach, and how is it different from, say, when you were building a team for the social media side only, which is like a creative graphics team, maybe a writer, a couple of guys, and how is that approach changed when you're now building a team that's... I understand that there's greater responsibility, but have your fundamental parameters of evaluating people changed? Do you look at, oh, hey, is this guy going to be with me for 3 to 5 years? Oh, hey, is this guy going to contribute to the core group that I have? Is it going to be a problem? I just want to get at how your perspective might have changed.
Not so much about if they're going to stick around with me for a very long period of time. I think there is some merit in it, but there is also some merit when one of the people I work with, if they happen to branch out, start their own thing. I think that just basically means that everybody in the ecosystem just started making more money.
Right.
If a lot of people branch out, they have their own thing, it's great for everyone.
Right.
Basically, everyone can then help each other out in their own businesses. The amount of money that is coming in just increases drastically by 5 times.
Right.
I think that is also one of the wrong approaches that earlier, probably 3 years back, I would have felt, oh no, nobody can poach my people, nobody can do this, that. I think that has fundamentally changed for me now, that there is no way of stopping this.
Right.
People will be where they want to be. There is no way you will stop other people poaching you. Your people will know where the right place to be at is.
Right.
And if they choose to stick with you, there is some value that they are getting here that they will probably not get elsewhere. When they start getting that value elsewhere, they should definitely make the move.
It's beautiful. I think that was a great way of putting it, and it's an example that pops into my head. If you look at content leads or content heads for all major companies across the world, right? If it's YouTube, be it Facebook, be it Snap, be it Apple, Netflix, wherever. The one thing that's common to all of the heads of content here is that at some point or another, they've spent some time at a company called Viacom 18. Right? And this is true.
I think most of the brand managers I deal with, they come with some years of experience at Viacom 18.
At Viacom 18, which kind of gives me hope and kind of talks to what you're also saying, that Viacom 18 must have been this sort of massive creative hub where creative and business would have met, giving rise to these sort of 50, 60 leaders and individuals who then go and, go out there. And I'm sure there's that deep relationship there. And I love it. I love the way you said, if there's the right opportunity for my guys somewhere, they should go somewhere. Because at the end of it, you still retain a relationship, right? Having worked together, if they enjoyed their time with you. And I think that's a very sweet place to be as creators who sort of, share a vision. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where it's going to be, hey, there's this one creator who's the king of everyone else and everyone listens to him. It is always, it is a relationship based thing, and it's great, that you think of it this way. It's very heartening. I share the view as well. But pivoting to you, Ranveer, very, very different from how Akash must have started out. Yours was a much more individual driven thing. How did you go about then picking your team? You already told us about how Virat joined in, but how's that been for you guys?
So I think right from the time it was just Viraj, myself, and my creative head Rajas, it was just 3 of us in the organization. We had this deep brotherhood, and which kind of now translates into a deep family culture in the organization. And
how big is your team now?
It's at about 35 people.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah. So
35 people? That's not a team. That's like an army.
Yeah. So we have this goal of...
Be a biceps army then.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But we always had really high expectations of ourselves, right from the time we started. And we scan our progress every 3 months. And if there hasn't been growth in terms of people joining in, we think we're doing something wrong. So I think the one thing we did right in the beginning was... one, getting the smartest people in DJ Sangvi to join, which happened very randomly. So our core team was just engineers somehow, who are from the same college. So there is anyway that inherent family culture. And these guys are real stars. So our leadership core is extremely strong. The kind of culture that's propagated through the company is a deep family culture. We've not had too many people leaving till now because we internally, all of us know we're building one of India's all-time biggest companies, and that's what we're building towards, and that's what we're constantly trying to tell our people at all points. We also, going forward, we're very sure that we're going to follow an intrapreneur model, which is that if someone wants to start a company, you start it as a network within Monk Entertainment. Fortunately, we've picked people who are genuinely as passionate about Monk Entertainment as Viraj and myself are. So that's worked for us really well. And people have already started working on building their own organizations within this organization. Anything that I can personally do, anything that Viraj can personally do for the people who join in, we always go out of our way to do. So we've been blessed with the right people. And even when we're hiring, we look for people who will be test match players and not T20 guys. So that's how we're looking at it. I think things have been going well till now.
I love the ambition in your voice when you say building one of the all-time big companies. And I have a sort of compound question to follow up to what you guys just said, right? And it has to do with not just keeping the talent you work with, and not just keeping the talent that's working for you, but also developing them for the future. I'll give you a scenario, right? You work with someone for 3 years, they realize they've run their life cycle with you. They started as a young intern, hungry to learn. 3 years later, they're nearly the finished article, super hustler, super creative, whichever way, right? There's always the opportunity for one of those guys where, say, a big company comes in, a big media company or a talent company, right? Comes in and offers an opportunity, right? Opportunities like, hey, work with bigger stars, work better training, etc. How do you then plan for a longer term for these guys, right? And I'm not saying that you stop them from leaving or you try and block their way out, but structurally, how do you build for keeping people in there, training them for stuff that they might be interested in? Like you said, the entrepreneur model, that sounds interesting, right? That's how you can retain the best talent. That's how the best companies have retained talent, right? Like the Googles of the world say, hey, 20% of your time, spend it on moonshots and we'll fund you. And same goes for places like Flipkart or Myntra, right? I mean, I think Flipkart itself has incubated about 400 other startups within Flipkart. So how do you do that as guys who are starting out, as people who desperately need your people to stick around at least for the short term or the long term? How do you make sure that the big guys don't come in and be like, bro, I've seen you have the talent that I'm looking for. I'm going to double your salary and whisk you away. So right? Apart from the family bonding, what is it that you're thinking of putting in place that would keep these guys with you?
At the cost of sounding like a vain YouTuber, I feel that you need to go Virat Kohli on that bitch. So lead by example. I'm constantly in that mode of challenging myself. I know that if I challenge myself and expand beyond my own horizons, right, the team will want to do that. And I ensure that the guys who are capable of being the future leaders of this organization continuously challenge themselves. So, okay, cool. Tomorrow, like a very big company, which is like 50 times bigger than us, might come. And this has happened in the past, where they've come and given job offers. But people don't want to leave because they don't want to be 50 times bigger. They want to be like 500,000 times bigger, which will happen within this organization. We know that we've expanded a lot by sticking together as a group, that tribal mentality you spoke about. And again, I think it just boils down to your hiring process. You need to hire the gems. So I think for every person we've hired, even if we have 35 today, there have probably been like 50 people that we've rejected for that one person every time. So we're very finicky about our hiring process. We ensure that we hire leaders. That's what's worked for us. So really like investing in people, communicating with them constantly that this is what I see for you, encouraging them to create their own mini teams within the organization, constantly help pushing them one step towards that intrapreneurship model, and also having emotional connections with them. Like, I know that some people might consider that not a scalable process, but I feel at least for 100 or 200 first hires in your organization, you need to have some kind of an emotional connect, because it's like a lifelong journey. Yeah. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about you, Akash?
I think the best place to really bloom yourself is when you're surrounded by people who believe in the same things, are on the same page about things, and they'll really give you the springboard to bounce. Okay, now go. What happens, I think, when you change your routes drastically and try and form newer routes, that takes time. And as human beings, I think we only have a very finite number of years, finite number of at least working years that you're working at. I think so. That's where you basically take a seat back and analyze how many years are you ready to. And after you spend enough number of years at a Y place, is it going to give you the same amount of return on investment that this place is giving you? Or if you stick around here for 3 years, is that going to be really beneficial? So I think that is a matter of choice. Most people would stick around because they would really like this play field that we have built for ourselves. And at the end of the day, it only boils down to that. I think after a certain bandwidth of the money you make, money really stops making a difference. I think that is one of the fundamental change that has happened to me as well. Like where when you grow up as a middle class someone, you always tend to believe that, oh, money is the root of all problems. Money is, because I don't have money, I'm sad.
Wait, it isn't? Nobody told me. That's okay.
So I think that is what you tend to grow up believing into, that if I have money at some point when I have money, I'll be happy, and then you get money, and then you're still sad, and then you realize, oh, I was just sad.
Money has nothing to do with it. It's just me. No, I hear you. I know what you're saying. There is that sort of creative gap that can only be filled by something intangible, and it's not money.
I also feel that one thing I have figured over time is that money is exciting initially, but then the process of like making it is way more exciting.
Yeah. I think there's a high that you chase, which isn't when it hits the bank. It's when something awesome really sails through.
Like
right?
you enjoy the hunt way more than you enjoy the hunted prey or whatever.
I know a lot of people who would disagree with that. Right? A lot of people I know, especially on my side of the business, which is the more sort of corporate organized, they don't enjoy the hunt. They're just like, bro, cannot do this, man.
Yeah.
Right. And which I think is the starkest difference between what I would call legacy branded content, etc., versus creator-led branded content, where the creators are like hustling and hungry. And
I think what essentially it boils down to is why money, chasing money becomes so interesting is because as soon as you start having more money, you have more leverage to generate and execute bigger ideas.
Yep.
I think that is why money comes into the picture. If tomorrow, like, I was able to generate and execute a big idea without the money, I would probably not be as interested in getting the money, joining the money, because I think I'm able to do it without it as well.
Right.
I think money is a great leverage. The things I'm able to do now, probably I would not be able to do because at like 2 years back, because I did not have the money. Now that I have the money, so I think as the amount of money that is incoming increases, I'll be taking on greater and greater, like bigger and bigger projects, executing far bigger things than I would previously do. And the joy is in executing the gargantuanism of the things that you.
I also feel that thing you said about corporate versus startup essentially is kind of a generational thing, dude. Like I genuinely, at least from my experience, maybe Akash can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like 90s kids have that thing, dude. Like kids born in early 90s.
Yeah.
There is that little bit of chase for, like the charm with the chase. I don't see too many people my age who don't think that way, but I might be wrong.
No, I agree with you. I think I've always had this theory that people, and please don't get me wrong, but my sense is people who are born between 86 and 93, that 7-8 years there, because they've seen the transition so clearly growing up, right? Anybody who's born like 94, 95 directly landed onto the internet, right? And anybody sort of before 83, 84 still had a lot of TV. Right? So there's this entire cohort, 7-8 years, where we just sort of see the world differently. We see it as sort of a field of opportunities that are open to us. Again, it's got a lot to do with the kind of privilege you grow up with when you're in the middle class. You're very fortunate to have parents who've put you in good schools and enabled you to see these opportunities. But people born in that cohort sort of see these opportunities and are able to chase them down slightly better. That's just a completely personal opinion. Of course, I might be entirely wrong. And data suggests that, people born after 2000 are just, every single one is a billionaire. And I'm like, okay, cool. But this is my sense, right? It's very interesting, though, that we were talking about money. And here's what I want to dig at a little bit is when you were just a creator, when you were just a social media guy, you were earning for yourself, right? But now you run companies and their salaries to pay. Paying 35 people's salaries, I don't think is a joke, right? It's like, that's serious responsibility, right? Even for you, 13 members is again, not under 10. You have to have Vishaka guidelines implemented, right? Yes. 10 plus. That's no joke. But how do you then look at money? While personally it might be less important, personally it might seem like, hey, I can maybe do without it. How do you then balance out the fact that there are salaries to pay, and is that always a constant worry? Is that something that you think about?
I think just starting out, I'd watched the correct kind of business related content on YouTube before my journey started. That's my MBA.
Right.
And the one lesson I gained from that whole phase was, before anything, focus on profit and loss. Profitability, that's the main thing. Pehle paisa banao, fir baki ka sab dekho. So that was a very strong mentality we had back in the day. Even like till today, we spend very wisely. The leadership core is entirely Gujarati. So like,
wise choice.
Yeah. So and I'm Punjabi. So it's two ends of the spectrum in terms of spending. So that was one of the key things I was looking at when I was looking for a business partner. I need like some guy who's stingy, and that's fortunately trickled through the organization. So today we only hire when we're actually capable of hiring 3 more people than we're actually hiring.
Right.
So we have that financial cushion. We're constantly thinking about 1 year ahead, 5 years ahead. We're thinking about strategy, keeping profit and loss as a cornerstone of our thought process. And on a very personal level, I feel like this kind of growth, both as a YouTuber and like as an entrepreneur, it puts like a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. So it does burden you somewhere mentally, but I'm not complaining. Like I enjoy the burden a little bit because I feel in engineering college I just wasted time. So I've always promised myself that when I start working, I'll do it seriously.
Right.
So now when that's actually happening at the age of 26, I'm like, cool, I'm not gonna around.
And that's you've managed to have a disciplined overcompensation quickly though, you're bootstrapped, funded?
Completely bootstrapped.
Beautiful. How about you, Akash?
Bootstrapped.
Beautiful. And again, do you stay up at night sometimes wondering how I'm going to pay salaries?
I think not so much now. I think before we began in the first few months, they were quite difficult. But after that, I think one of the personal wins for me that I consider is I think the building that financial cushion of that when you go back to sleep, like for the next 6 months, I don't have to worry about paying salaries. Even if I go without business, zero business at all, which is not going to happen, of course.
Yeah.
Even then, I'm going to be fine. I think what that did is then you focus on the bigger problems that you have to solve.
Yeah.
Bro, that's also a blessing of being in the media business and in the digital marketing space. There's so much money coming in that we're just secure. We know that if you hustle a bit, paisa aega.
But do you know this? There, like everything now is entertainment. Like, did you watch this documentary, The Great Hack, on Netflix? Did you watch The Game Changer? Of course, you must have watched The Game Changer.
Yeah.
I think the biggest epiphanies of life are now entertainment. Served to us as entertainment.
Yeah.
Everything is turning into entertainment, and then there are ways to like watch
monetize.
it. Like every night I watch stuff for entertainment that gives me hard truths about my life. I go back to sleep, and it's entertainment.
It's exactly that. And I mean, there's this question that I ask almost every guest on the show, which is, what do stories mean to you? Right, and it's kind of the genesis of this podcast as well. Is everything is entertainment today, right? Right from stuff you've learnt in school to experiential learning to stuff you're just learning through a consumption bias, right? I'll give you an example, and this is something that I keep talking about whenever we talk about branded content. Is that there is this passive learning bias that happens without you even realizing it. And the great example for that is in the 70s and 80s, the brand of chainsaws that sold most was the brand that was used in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Right? So it's a microcosm for learning, right? It's like nobody wants to be a murderer, but hey, we saw this murderer use this specific thing, and now that's just in my subconscious somehow, right? Which is beautiful, right? But yeah, let me throw this over, and since we're talking about this, what do stories then mean to you guys?
Stories are anything that starts a conversation, and it could be anything. Again, as you said, it could be a national disaster, it could be a murder, it could be something as beautiful as celebrating someone's birthday. Everything is just at the end of the story. Like today, when I look at national disasters or something, people should just look around and see like if there's some folks in people from HBO on Netflix suit. So we have got a new plot for a new documentary.
Wow, that is
everybody
dark,
around the world is going to love it.
Wow, that is some
unofficial Bombay High Court shit.
But I like it. Stories are anything that start a conversation. What do you think?
Bro, I think again this is like the YouTuber inside me talking. We make motivational content, so I look for inspiration in everything that I consume personally. I have to either watch a movie that inspires me or f***s my mind. Like it's one of these two things, or adds some value, or gives me some information.
Makes you feel something in a way.
No, teaches me something.
Teaches you something.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a sharper way of putting it. It makes you feel something. Is like, am I dead inside?
Because in a way, I think all the thoughts and all the learnings that I get in my personal life, I'm always looking for content for my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Once I'm done with my YouTube video, that content becomes a part of your mind as a YouTuber, and then I can like give it out to my Monk Entertainment team. Then the entrepreneur benefits from this whole process of writing and learning the stories and telling stories. So inspiration, and it's also the fuel for my YouTube career.
Yeah.
primarily. That's what Story's been doing.
Fantastic. There's one thing that I want to ask you guys about being creative entrepreneurs. Apart from the money and apart from people, when you're building a company, there's this entire set of things that need to get done that I'm sure you guys don't want to do, right? HR, legal, admin, and many times you need to bring in people who may not be from the same sort of mindset, may not be from the same sort of background. How do you then deal with the challenge of simply explaining to them what and why it is that you're doing here and getting them kind of be part of your culture? See, I think as far as storytellers or creative guys or even business guys go, everyone's pulling towards one thing, right? It is, oh, hey, we want to realize this great vision for what we're trying to do. We want to make money while we're at it. And these are the sort of principles of what we want to do, right? But how do you explain that to what I would say is support functions, in a sort of crude way of saying it, right?
I personally don't do it. Like, I have people around me who are better at understanding these processes of a company, way better than me. Even at Monk Entertainment, my role is that I mentor the leadership core, I mentor some of our stars, and I think of macro strategy.
Right.
This is where we should be going. And I have a meeting with my leadership core probably once every month, talking about macro strategy.
Right.
Everything else is done by the fantastic leadership core that we have. Now, I know that this is not an answer that will work for everyone, but it worked for me.
No, it's great. I mean, it's the structures that work for you, right? No two companies are going to be alike. No two people running companies are going to be alike. And it's great. So let me double click on that for a second, though. Within your leadership core as well, there will be people who are not, 100% congruent with how you think, right?
Yeah.
They may know what needs to be thought through and they may know how to approach it. But say you got an IT guy in, say you got an HR guy. HR is often a problem, right? I know this close friend of mine runs a company up in Delhi that's a very creative company, does a really good work. And suddenly she had an HR person who just didn't fit the culture, right? And how do you then tackle stuff like that? Has that ever come up within your leadership team?
My leadership team is fixed, done and dusted. It
the
consists
three guys.
of it's about 7-8 people.
Oh, right, okay.
So all these are their problems.
Yeah.
If they have problems, I mentor them and I solve it.
Yeah.
Again, just pick your leadership core really well, because then you don't have to go down to that level.
Fantastic. I think that's a very well-rounded way of looking at it, right? Have a stringent hiring process, and then later delegate it to people who might be, better equipped to deal with it.
Yeah, and there is this, mentality that we have behind the hiring process,
Right.
that each person we're hiring has to fit a certain moral code, and each person that we're hiring has to fit a certain set of values. Like, their values have to match the values that we need. That's why we reject 50 people and only have one person hired. So we've not had that problem till now. In saying that, I genuinely feel that entrepreneurs of today need to go back to old school entrepreneurship a little bit and motivate on a very personal level. Football, Manchester United, Alex Ferguson, man management. If I shout at, and I'll give you the example of my edit room, the guys at Beer Biceps, who are also technically Monk Entertainment employees. If I shout at one editor X, he will actually perform really well because of me scolding him. That same shouting at another editor Y will completely wreck his editing performance.
Sure.
Alex Ferguson used to do this thing with Wayne Rooney and Nani. Wayne Rooney used to react really well when someone shouted at him, and Nani's game would get if someone shouted at him.
Mm-hmm.
So things he wanted to tell Nani, he would actually look at Wayne Rooney, even if Wayne Rooney was playing well, and tell him, Bencho, stop dribbling so much and all that. And then Nani would pick up on those cues. So if you just study leaders, who've been legendary, pick up some of those traits, bring it to your organization, lead in an old school way. In my experience, it works a lot.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that is very well articulated. Lovely.
Yeah.
What about you, Akash? How have you tackled some of these things?
I think so all the non-creative functions, admin, HR, the legal, etc. I think when we start calling for applications, the people who we call for interview who already have a little idea about what we are actually doing, from either from social media or from the people who have worked with or the brands that they have probably worked at. In some ways, they know what we are trying to do and trying to achieve. And it's just a series of meeting a lot of people and then finding the right fit. And then there's a time bandwidth there is that you have to give it to them. Maybe in the 3 months, they'll know the culture set really well. And I think it's just a function of that. And because there's so many people out there. You will, and everyone will be able to find that one right match. There will be someone who knows and gets it really well. So just, I think there's, in the initial few months, you need to give it a lot of time. You need to meet a lot of people and find the right fit. That is, I think, the only way to go about it, for me at least, because I don't think I have as much resources as Ranveer, or probably, but because I think with us, since also very few months into running this and bootstrapped, a lot of things I end up doing personally, on a personal level. Most of the roles I fill in personally, and constantly meeting new people to find and sit at all these admin functions.
Right.
Yeah. So also, like a bonus note. Sorry, you want to continue?
No,
okay.
Go ahead.
Also, like a bonus note, dude, like, on a personal level, being a YouTuber has paid off a lot in business, in terms of opening doors, in terms of, if I just put out a story on my Instagram saying, yaar, we need these things, I get some of the best applicants in the country, like, applying. Because people are just like, okay, I believe in your vision because I watch your YouTube channel, so I know YouTube is like, you're exposing your mind to the world, dude. Yeah. And you can't hide what's in your mind on
It's a
YouTube.
very strong sort of personal branding tool 100%. That totally translates to what you're doing in business.
100%.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's the biggest kind of X factor that I've had on a personal level as an entrepreneur.
Fantastic. My last sort of business question is, apart from all of this, what are some key challenges that you faced or you are still facing and you think you'd need to tackle in the next, say, year or so to supercharge growth for yourself?
I've been giving too much attention to Monk Entertainment and not so much to my YouTube stuff, which is the core of what I do. I'm shifting out of my office because my editing team on Beer Biceps is kind of in a laid back pace, which is good. It's a conscious decision because we want the best possible, beautiful, cool content to come out. Monk Entertainment works at a very fast pace.
Right.
So it's basically two organizations working out of one office. I'm moving out of this office just to kind of go back to my home where it started out, giving them a better kind of fertile ground for their creativity. And on a personal level, even I need to get out of the Monk Entertainment office. I feel it's automated now, and it's about time that I just visit that office once a month.
So what I'm hearing is you're trying to find the right balance of where you invest your time.
Yeah, and I'm also working on a new project, which is something in the education space, which might completely come crashing. Like, it's a very difficult project. So I'm gonna the office that I'm shifting into now, which is like my old office. There's one room which is kind of like an incubation space for new startups. So if the education things fail, I might do something in clothing. If that fails, I'll do something in something else. But I enjoyed the process of kind of, I don't like calling it incubating, but co-founding Monk Entertainment. And I want to do that more in my life. I want to do it in different domains, learn about different things.
Right.
Also, as a YouTuber, I think as a creative professional, you tend to get bored really easily. So you'll do something really crazily for like 2 years, and then you just want to like take a step back.
Yeah.
So I think I've figured that out about myself, and I think as a businessman, that's where I fit best, doing different shit.
So from Beer Biceps, the YouTube creator, to Beer Biceps, Ranveer Alabadia, the serial entrepreneur. I think that would be the journey that we're looking at.
Yeah, 100%.
That sounds awesome, man. How about you, Akash? What are some challenges that you think you need to navigate in the next year that will really help supercharge growth for you?
I think one of the major challenges that, not just for me, but I think that exists now in the entire typical agency model of business is it's slowly dying. The way we consume content, even through brands, is changing so rapidly. The typical agency model wouldn't stand a chance against folks like us, and I'm very sure that in the coming few years there are going to be more people like me who build a creator's mindset for brand itself. Like today, like we have like one of the few teams who does this in India. I'm very sure like there'll be 10 different teams in a very short period of time, and the typical agency model keeps on dying. I think the one big challenge for me would be to explain brands the importance and the value that we bring to the table. That I think still today it remains one of the most important challenges, because brands would easily compare us with one of the other agencies that charges basically nothing, provides zero value, and like that is how the agency model has been, the digital agency model. Like brands would not get any visibility, etc. So I think that is, I think, still and will remain one of the biggest challenges in explaining your value to the decision makers. But I see that's changing now slowly with, like, I think the new age founders coming in, and them getting the how invaluable and irreplaceable this sort of function to our businesses. The new age founders are getting it, and they now spread this knowledge among the circuit, and then everybody slowly gets it. And as long as I think decision makers understand the value proposition, that will remain the biggest challenge.
Fantastic. I think you hit it on the head when you said getting brands to start thinking as creators for themselves. I think that's a very important hill that we need to climb in the next couple of years if this space is going to grow very rapidly. My last question to you, and it's a question that I usually end this podcast with, is can you recommend a story for our listeners? Could be anything, could be a song, a movie, music video, could just be a meme, could be a game. I mean, my definition of story is like really wide. So yeah, anything that you'd like to recommend for our listeners?
I think the first thing I'd recommend is the one movie that's had like the deepest impact on my life, which is Laksh. Very simple movie. I think the core of all this stuff that we've spoken about is discipline. So first, just get disciplined. Watch Laksh. I don't know which Indian guy has not watched Laksh. So
but watch it again.
Yeah, every single Indian guy should at least rewatch it if you're looking to find discipline in your life. The second movie that's really inspired me recently, I've watched a bunch of times, is this movie called Invictus, which I just discovered recently. Old movie. But it's got Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon.
Yeah.
It's how Nelson Mandela inspired the South African rugby team in 1995 to go and win the World Cup. And they were a crappy team.
Yeah.
But he inspired them again through man management. So I feel the core of business, the core of success in life is discipline and man management. Yeah, so those are the two movies.
Fantastic. How about you, Akash?
Please watch Hera Fairy and Welcome Again and Again. All the answers to life you need, they exist inside the movie. Just need to watch it the right way.
And go and follow Just Here to Ruin Your Day.
Yeah, shout out to Masi also for running this fabulous page, Just Here to Ruin Your Day.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite pages on Instagram right now, bro.
I love it. I love his knack and the entire knack to start creating these really catchy social media things. Like, I know we haven't spent a lot of time talking about shit. What was that?
Just Here to Ruin Your Day. What?
No, dude. How am I forgetting?
What is that?
Pyar ek dhokha hai.
Oh.
Yeah, this was me trying to show a knife being stabbed into someone because that was the creative that's in my head. But stuff like Pyar ek dhokha hai and Just Here to Ruin Your Day or Honest Pages. I'm a big fan of the stuff that you guys create here. Ranveer, Akash, it was an absolute blast having you guys in the studio today.
Likewise,
thank you so
man.
much for your time and for sharing your journeys and your perspectives on this business. I'm sure we'll have you back here again very soon. But that's it from this episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe.
And if you want to reach out to me, I am at nothing on Twitter, and nobody should be on Twitter, at Akash on Instagram.
And if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Beer Biceps Guy on Twitter and Beer Biceps on Instagram.
घड़ी की टिक टिक के बीच अब वक्त हो चुका है टपरी पे मिलने का, चाय या कॉफी के साथ टपरी टेल्स सुनने का। सोचिए, अगर आपकी मम्मी, अक्का, दादी, नानी, जीजी, आजी भी आपके साथ इस चाय की टपरी पे एक चुस्की लेने आ जाए तो कैसी बातें होंगी? उनकी कहानियाँ कितनी नई या पुरानी होगी। एक्चुअली ना, टपरी पे पहली बार ये उनकी जुबानी होगी। तो मिलिए इन नए किरदारों से हर गुरुवार टपरी टेल्स पर। चाय की प्याली, एक नई कहानी with Madhuri Advani on IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you get your podcast from.
Every week comes a show where three people come together to tell you about stuff they like. A movie, a TV show, a book, and other stuff. Tune in every Monday on the IVM Podcast app to IVM Likes. Batman approves this message. Thank you, Batman.